I'm Louise Engelbrecht. I'm a sport physiologist and performance nutritionist with Fuelform. I'm currently busy with my PhD in sport physiology and nutrition, focusing on ultra endurance performance and recovery. Often when we start training for endurance events, ultra endurance events, we're surprised at how tired we are, and that's not always just due to the training, but the lack of proper fueling before, during and after our training sessions. So it's a challenge to actually get the right amount of food in and to eat as much as required to help us to get the most out of our training sessions, but also still be able to function normally for the rest of the day. Another challenge would be to figure out what works best for you while you're on the bike. If you're not used to eating a lot of carbs, that can be a challenge to train your gut to handle the amount of carbs, and also just to figure out what type of fueling you prefer during your sessions. How much training you do would depend on your goals, okay? If you just want to finish or if you actually want to perform, but I would say a range between 9 to 15 hours a week, with your shorter rides during the week of about 90 minutes, and over the weekend trying to do 1 to 2 long rides of at least 3 hours or longer. So fueling for those type of efforts, okay, will also depend on the session. If you're doing high intensity efforts, it's always good to have a bit of carbs before the time, and also afterwards, because you're going to deplete all your carbohydrate stores during the session. If you're going to do a long ride, but it's going to be an easy session, you might want to focus on a little bit more of a higher carb breakfast before your ride. You can have carbs during, and depending on if the next day is a rest day or you're going to go out for another long ride, will depend on what you eat. If it's a rest day, you can chill, you can eat what you want. Maybe not chill completely, but the focus of recovering as fast as possible is not that big. But if you're going to do another long ride or even a high intensity ride, make sure that you get in enough carbs after your ride, and try to eat something within that first 2 hours after finishing. If you struggle to eat immediately after your training sessions, go for something like a smoothie, or just to get something in. So before your long rides, typically you'll start that early in the morning, so you don't want to wake up too early and not getting enough sleep. So if you can eat at least an hour before your ride, that would be great. Something like oats is a good option. You can do overnight oats and maybe add something like a peanut butter or some nuts, or in the morning top it with some plain yogurt and maybe berries. That would be a nice slow release of carbohydrates for your session. During the ride, if you like gels and bars and stuff and that works for you, that's fine. If you're someone that prefers more whole foods, you can look at maybe little baby potatoes, fruit, mixture of nuts with some salt, and also dried fruit is nice for a quick release of energy. If you need something more substantial for the longer rides, maybe you can add a bit of like a biltong or a dwarfs for some extra fuel. So when we think about supplements, there's a whole bunch of different ranges of supplements out there. Just to take into consideration that not all of them work. So there's a limited amount of supplements that has good evidence that they are effective, and some of them might contain stuff that's not supposed to be in them. But if we think of protein supplements, sometimes it's difficult to get in all the energy, the calories that you need from food and the protein. So protein is a good option for recovery, but then look specifically at your whey proteins and go for isolate or hydrolyzed whey. And that way you'll secure that most of the product should be actually the whey, as opposed to a concentrate that can be anything from 20 to 80% of the product might be whey. Then for someone that's going to train for a multi-stage event, recovery is also important. So something like creatine might be beneficial, a creatine monohydrate, but you don't necessarily have to do the bulking phase, and you can only take the dosage for that's recommended for maintenance, so 5 grams per day, and do that leading up to maybe the 4 weeks leading up to your event, when recovery becomes more important. And something that has relative good evidence is fish oil. So if you want something that will just help with the immunity, keeping you healthy, that is another option that you can use. Try to go for something that's more real food, something maybe like a Marmite sandwich or fruit cake. Like one slice of fruit cake will give you almost 30 grams of carbs, so that's a good source of carbs for you. And yeah, go for those stuff that's a bit more tricky to carry with you on the bike, that will also just help with your morale boost and something nice to eat. So if you want to grab a few sweeties, that's also fine. Jelly sweets are always a good idea. I won't necessarily say you have to take too much at once, up to 3 at a time maybe, but that's a good quick energy boost. The thing about the sweeties, if you take too much, it might be too sweet and you might experience what we call taste fatigue. So if you're going to add that with a very sweet drink and a very sweet gel, that might be a bit overwhelming and can possibly lead to gastrointestinal issues. So yeah, sweeties are fine, but don't eat a whole handful at a time. Yeah, the easiest way might be to either go to my website, fuelform.co.za, or my Instagram handle, fuel_form. And yeah, they can also email me at louise@fuelform.co.za.